Colombia fought from a goal down to draw against Brazil. It ensures they progress to the quarterfinals as group winners ahead of their opponents, who were left to rue a controversial VAR decision and now face a tougher tie in the next round. David Stokes reports.
Both sides walked out in California knowing that a victory would guarantee top spot in Group D. Colombia's James Rodriguez was inches away from opening the scoring early on. But it was a free kick from Barcelona's Rafinha at the other end which broke the deadlock. Brazil, the 9-time Copa champions, felt they should have been awarded a penalty when Vinicius Jr. was brought down 3 minutes before half-time. VAR decided otherwise, and instead it was Colombia who scored an equaliser before the break through Daniel Munoz. Colombia haven't lost a game since February 2022, and it was them who came closest to getting a winner late in the game. Nevertheless, it's now 26 games unbeaten for Colombia, who finished top of the group, while Brazil have to settle for second, frustrated by that penalty call.
Foi decisivo.
For me, it was decisive, because in the stadium, only maybe the referee and the VAR team did not see that the penalty existed. Brazil once again have been severely punished by this. We have to be realistic. This was definitely a penalty.
The other game in that group saw Costa Rica beat Paraguay 2-1, thanks to 2 quick goals in the first 7 minutes, and then a stunning save from their goalkeeper, Patrick Sequeira, in injury time. But it was all in vain, because the draw in the other match meant that Costa Rica finished third, a point behind Brazil. So for both sides, the tournament is now over. David Stokes, Al-Jazeera.
So here's how the quarterfinals shape up at the Copa. Colombia winning their group sets up a more favourable clash with Panama, while Brazil face a tricky test against Uruguay. Defending champions Argentina are up against Ecuador, and Venezuela take on Canada. Let's go live to Miami, where football broadcaster Juan Arango joins us now. Juan, good to talk to you as always. Let's start with Venezuela. Historically, they are one of the minnows in South America, but they're having a great tournament. What are they doing in Venezuela?
Hey, Peter, how are you, first and foremost? What Venezuela's been doing is more grassroots football more than anything else. They've been developing a lot at the youth level. You got to keep in mind that many of these players that are on the Venezuelan national team at one point happened to be part of that under 20 World Cup team that ended up going to the final of the under 20 World Cup. Of course, that year won by England and Dominic Calvert-Lewin's only goal. But it's been a lot of that work. It's been a lot of football culture being instilled. And of course, for many, it ends up being another outlet other than baseball to be an economic means. So you start to see a great deal of development, but you also start to see a great deal of support and growth in Venezuelan football.
Certainly a positive story, but perhaps not as positive for the host nation, United States, and the 2026 co-hosts, Mexico. Very disappointing competitions for those two. Where does this leave them 2 years out from the World Cup?
It leaves them in a compromising position, if you ask me, because, first of all, there are no plans for either one of the teams to change coaches or kind of change direction in terms of what they're doing right now. Overall, the teams have really not been able to find an ideal functionality outside of CONCACAF. Obviously, these two teams are the most dominant teams within that confederation. Outside of it, I think the record was in the last 37 matches combined, they've only won 6. So that tells you a great deal of how they play outside of CONCACAF. But there's also been a prioritization of the commercial end over the football end between Mexico's and the US's FA. And that's where things end up being very compromising in terms of the result on the pitch and the product on the pitch. And we've seen that so far in this Copa America.
So Brazil and Argentina are the two teams most fans from outside Latin America will always look out for. What's your assessment of their chances in the knockout stage?
Well, let's start out with the easy one, because with Argentina, basically right now, they're the prohibited favorites to win the Copa America. Maybe the only team that could beat Argentina right now, many have said that is Argentina themselves. And maybe, injuries, of course, Lionel Messi questionable to play against Ecuador in Houston. But in terms of that, they're the prohibited favorites. Brazil ends up kind of veering in the opposite direction because it's a generation of Brazilian players that have seemed diminished, that there is no productivity. There isn't an identity in terms of how they're playing football in recent weeks. players like Endrick, who are deemed as the jewels of Brazilian football, haven't been given as much of a chance under Dorival Jr. And the overcautiousness and trying to be very, very sure-footed instead of being riskier, how we're used to seeing Brazil, has kind of not paid dividends in terms of what Brazil's overall performance has been.
Juan, as is customary for interviews like this, I have to ask you for a prediction.
Mm-hmm. In terms of what? In terms of who wins the tournament?
Yeah, overall.
Well, you know how I've been in these, and I've been more wrong. And right now, it's very difficult to say Argentina aren't going to win this tournament. But if there's a team that might be able to beat them, it's Uruguay.
Juan Arango, a pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.